Good afternoon to everybody. Parshat Vayeira. I would like to contrast this week's Parsha with last week's as far as Pidyon Shvoyim is concerned. Last week, we read about Abraham's reaction to the first captive in history, which is recorded in the Torah, that is to say. It says that the four kings, what they did was they captured Lot. The language of the Torah is as follows: Vayishma Abraham ki nishba achib. He heard that his brother was Lot, who was his nephew, was captured by the four kings, and he went out to rescue him. On the other hand, in this week's parasha, we hear also about his own wife, Sarah, being taken captive by Melech. She is like sort of kidnapped because he wants to marry her. And here we don't see that Abraham, in contrast to what happened in last week's parasha, we don't see that he attempts in any way to try and to redeem her, to release her from bondage. I think that the answer is actually quite straightforward, but let's start off like this. First of all, generally, when we speak about ransoming of prisoners, of captives, which is in Hebrew called Pidyon Shvuyim, the word Pidyon comes from the word to redeem. And it always implies and it always involves, actually by definition, we're speaking about using money in order to redeem the prisoner. We're not speaking about like some military or some type of attack. We're speaking generally, halachically, about using money in order to ensure the redemption. And how do we know that? We have a great principle in halacha and in understanding concepts. Wherever you want to understand a concept properly, go and look where it's mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch, or where it's mentioned in the Rambam or in the Gemara. So where would you want to find, or where should we look when we're trying to understand the laws of redeeming captives? Where do we find that in Shulchan Aruch? Well, we find it in Shulchan Aruch in the section which deals with tzedakah. Not in the section that deals with pikuach nefesh, not in the section that deals with saving a life, in the section which deals with the laws of tzedakah. There, the Shulchan Aruch elaborates and speaks about how much money one has to give in order to ransom Jewish captives. And everybody knows of the famous case of the Maharam Rothenburg, who realized that if the community would redeem him, that would just incite and give an extra appetite to the wicked kings to come and to capture other Jews and to hold them ransom, and that would impoverish the community. So what he did was he refused for the Jews to ransom him. He was in jail till his death for 7 years, and then in another 7 years till they released the body. So that was by one Jew. So we see that the inyan of ransoming captives has got to do with money, because that's how it appears in the Shulchan Aruch, and that's how it appears also in the Rambam. The Rambam, when he speaks about matanot evyonim, the gifts that we have to give to the poor, and that's where he speaks also about tzedakah, that's where he also speaks about pidyon shvuyim. So I think that would be like a straight answer. Why? What could Abraham actually have done to release his wife? All right, he was a person who had come. When he came down to Avimelech. All right, there was a problem of a drought, and did he have the wherewithal to ransom him? On the other hand, so I think that the answer from that point of view, it might be a very technical answer. I'm not so sure if it's a correct answer, but that's what I think that the answer is. On the other hand, there's something that we should note, and that is that the Avraham Avinu taught us that when it comes to Pidyon Shvuyim, it's sometimes we have to go beyond just using money, and we have to put ourselves into a situation of actually endangering ourselves. Because, like, look what would happen with Abraham and Lot. It's just pashut amazing. Four kings. So we're speaking about like powerful kingdoms. They capture a lot, and because Lot was in Sodom, the place where they were waging war against 5 other kings. And Abraham now, a single person, together with 318 men, according to the Midrashim and the Torah, he took a whole group of men and he attacked the 4 kings. So this is like another dimension of releasing and ransoming captives. This is not something, we said that in the Shulchan Aruch, that the laws of ransoming is where it's to be found in the laws of tzedakah. But here, what Abraham Avinu tells us, that sometimes the Jewish way is not only to settle for money, but where the person has got courage. People like Abraham Avinu, their courage emanates from their sense of emunah and of morality. So then he puts himself in a precarious situation in order to go out and to capture back and to ensure the release of his nephew. So that's something which is like as I say, very, very Jewish. That when it comes now to captives, that's not only to settle for money, but to engage in Masirut Nefesh in order to release a fellow Jew. So those were. I don't think that in the case of Sarah, he was able to do that, but I think the best way is sometimes a question is very strong, and it's better to have a stronger question than a weaker answer. And I leave it at that. People can think about what is it that when it came to Lot, he put himself into such a situation, and when it came to Sarah, we don't find really that he tried to do anything, although the Torah tells us that immediately with the capture of Sarah by Abimelech, immediately there was a plague. Hashem intervened and maybe didn't have to do something. There is one other point that I'd like to make, which is again brings out all that we learn about the Parshiot, about Abraham Avinu and the Avot, is that they implanted us certain Jewish characteristics. Now Lot put himself in a situation where he caused in a way his capture, because the Torah tells us in last week's Sedra that when Abraham and Lot separated, Abraham said, you can choose wherever you want to live, and he chose to be with Sodom. He chose to be with the wicked people. Why? Because they were wealthier. Okay, so what caused him then afterwards, when there was a war with the king of Sodom against and his allies against the other 4 kings, so Lot was captured. But as Rashi points out, why was Lot captured? He himself put himself in a situation which was very dangerous. He aligned himself with Sodom. He sold his soul because he wanted to be in a place which was wealthier. And even so, and this is the big point, even though he put himself into that grave situation, but his uncle went out and with Masirut Nefesh tried to help him. This is something which is also very Torah-dika. This is part of our Torah values which Avraham Avinu taught all of us. Shabbat Shalom Lekulam.